Welcome back, Juno News. I'm Alexander Brown, host here of Not Sorry. I'm the director of the National Citizens Coalition. I'm a writer, a campaigner. Thrilled to be with you. Thrilled to be able to talk to you coming out of Labor Day, coming out of a Wild West weekend where I'm as frustrated as you are. I hope that you were on the dock. I hope that you were walking in nature. I trust you were spending time with your loved ones and being grateful for all that we have, even in our often frustrating country. But going into the weekend, Sean Fraser sniped back at Pierre Poilievre, saying, this is not the Wild West in relation to the Lindsay self-defense case. That tweet has gone viral the world over. That is going to hang around his neck like a millstone for the rest of his career, and it should hang there along with whatever millstone has been created, thanks to his time in immigration and housing, because generationally incompetent, one of the worst of the worst. There's no way around it. But quite unfortunately, and this has been reported on here at Juno News and all across, media streams, it was a rough weekend for this country on the public safety file. There was it seems like an execution of a father in front of his family. There was a horrible instance in Welland, Ontario, where it is believed to have occurred that former offender, they're always former offenders, we know why, broke into a family's home overnight and sexually assaulted a 5-year-old. That's, I don't know when these things became acceptable in our country. There's been great reporting recently here at Juno News as well from Clayton Domain on this Jewish woman who was attacked in a supermarket, and it was for being a Jewish woman at a supermarket. We have stunning video from Mario Zelaya that's gone all kinds of viral and is now prompting an OPP investigation where, there's this all but militia of guys just letting loose rounds into McTier and Muskoka. And I used to work summer jobs in Muskoka. That is a populated area. Like outside of that park, outside of that bridge, there are working class homes. It's not just the affluent cottages. There are people walking those trails, and those are live rounds dropping among them. We know these guys don't have, their shooting licenses. We know they don't have their PAL or their RPAL. We do know that they're likely on temporary visas of some sort. And apparently this had been going on for months. And finally, because it goes viral, that we decide to give a darn. This is the Wild West in comparison to 10 years ago, without the advantages of the Wild West, such as you could stake a claim for yourself. You could afford a home if you were, a hardworking young person. You could defend yourself without, being thrown into this bureaucratic legal nightmare, having to defend the fact that you defended your family. This is more insulting gaslighting. This is more performative nonsense from the same group of people who put us in this situation of decline to begin with. You can tell I'm tired of it. It's upsetting. It's upsetting to all of us. We're going into a September where vital change needs to happen, and we're looking at the same damn gaslight. I don't think that's acceptable. I imagine you don't think that's acceptable too. And I'm thankful to have you here to watch this episode, because we're going to talk to Alex Zoltan, the crime reporter here at Juno News and the True North Wire service, which is going to be of a big help, because this is infuriating. This is a time to push on all these key files, whether it's immigration, whether it's crime, housing, employment, because if we don't get this fixed now, it gets worse. And I want to draw your attention to something, because maybe you saw it today. Doug Ford, Ontario's premier, just pulled a cheap stunt over this Crown Royal situation where a bottling plant, not the operation in Gimli, Manitoba, a bottling plant believed to have been planning this move to leave for the US and shut down operations in Ontario for years because whiskey sales globally are changing. People are drinking less. Doug turned it into this cheap performative stunt when most of these crimes occurred that we just talked about in Ontario. He, pours the 40 out and thinks he's spiking the football, thinks it's some wonderful moment. It is cheap nonsense at a moment when people are being executed in their homes, when families feel less and less safe, when young people do not recognize the towns they are trying to start families in and lay down roots. We are pouring out booze. We are doing the let them eat cake thing. Everything with him is let them drink booze. It's retail politician nonsense. It is dreamed up by consultants and transactional consultants. And you can tell because they do not have your interests at heart. This is a phantom protecting of jobs here. This place was already shutting down. This is a parlor trick. And a parlor trick at a time when Ford, who does comment on this issue of crime during this presser, should be talking to his new buddy Mark Carney about all they can do to fix crime. He should be more critical about that than all this cheap nonsense. Thank you for sticking around for this interview. Can you tell I'm angry? junonews.com/notsorry for 20% off. We now welcome on Alex Zoltan, True North Wire Service crime reporter, does great work through Juno News. We are, of course, talking about the Wild West coming out of Labor Day. We're talking about the flippancy of Sean Fraser's tweet dismissing these very real concerns is not happening. We look around, you leave your house, we can very much tell that it's happening. No one's been on this beat quite like, the man on the call with me right now as a crime reporter. He has recently put out stories on that 18-year-old who stabbed up the Calgary Stampede, on that just unconscionable sort of targeting home invasion, allegedly, and sure sounds like an execution in Vaughan. Alex Zoltan, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
Are we in the Wild West right now?
I would say that yes, we are. One of the things that bothers me so much right now in crime reporting is when police departments suggest that the crime rate has gone down. There's a certain level of speaking to people that is required in journalism. And if you speak to people, they will tell you that crime is so high that we've hit a critical mass and people just aren't even reporting it anymore. So yeah, it's absolutely the Wild West for sure.
Yeah, I just left the house this morning running some errands before, we got to record this. And I'm not even kidding. Like I witnessed like 2 or 3 felonies, but it's now this baseline. We've lowered the standard where, you see rampant drug use, you see the 10 cities, you see degradation, you see, petty nonsense. And we know that people aren't calling the police anymore when they see it because you're going, we all stand up against the big stuff when we have to, but you're going like, is this worth my time right now when I got stuff to do? And the cops might just shrug their shoulders. Heck, you get your car stolen in a place like Toronto right now, they just tell you to call the insurance company. They don't even try to find it. You can bring them the GPS responder saying it's here, it's in this illegal trucking yard in Caledon, let's say, because they're increasingly in Caledon, it's destroying that wonderful town. And they go, call your insurance company, not our problem. Going into this story that you've reported on, where York police said officers were called to a residence shortly before 1 a.m. on Sunday, where they found a 46-year-old man suffering from trauma to his body. We have since seen online chatter and learned reports that this could have been, as bad as it gets, that this was a kind of a potential sort of gangland execution in front of a family. You've been covering crime, for a number of years now, and you're great on Twitter. You do an excellent job sort of communicating with the Juno News audience. Have you ever seen anything like this?
Oh, well, gangland executions. Well, I'm from Surrey, so yes. Famously, we had the Surrey 6 case, and that was a case of mistaken identity. I think that there's an element to this story that people should be cognizant of in terms of reporting, because in this story and the Welland story, which both happened over the Labor Day weekend, that was the one involving the horrific assault of a child.
Yeah.
In both cases, the police said that they were targeted. Well, targeted is a very broad term, right? So targeted could mean that they were targeted because they were in a case of mistaken identity, right? So yeah, this is not entirely new, gangland executions, but it is horrific, and it's terribly inconvenient for Sean Fraser to have said this is not the Wild West just before this horrific long weekend of serial crime across the province of Ontario
Yeah.
specifically, which of course we know is like a liberal stronghold.
And a liberal light stronghold now, if one could make the case with Ontario's premier. It strikes me as another instance of this kind of disconnect between reality and communications, which reminds so many, I think, of the Trudeau years, where you leave your house, everything is looking not as great as it used to. And then you're being told through official channels that everything is hunky dory. Don't be offensive, take your medicine. We don't have a crime problem, we don't have an immigration problem, housing's not so bad. Forget the drugs. It's in the best interest of society. And you're going, no, it's not. Like we can tell it's not. We see the impacts it has in our communities. We see the impacts it's having on our youth, on employment, on public safety, on the conversations we all have in private, and we all have them. You go to even some stuffy liberal cocktail party now. Not that I really get invited to those, and people are talking about like the degradation at their doorstep. And
Of
then
course.
after a Labor Day weekend of the gun, Sean Fraser, leading into it, tells everybody, like Baghdad Bob, nothing to worry about, folks.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean, I think we just both found out we're both from BC, and maybe from BC. We're living in BC and fairly close to the downtown core of Vancouver. And that has always been the epicenter of Canadian chaos. What
yeah,
I find really crazy about these police statistics, them saying that crime has gone down, there's that old saying, I think Benjamin Franklin said there's three types of lies: small lies, big lies, and statistics. And in this case, if you have eyes and ears and you've lived in the lower mainland for a long time, you can tell that things are much worse, because there are now multiple downtown east sides. There are what I like to call satellite downtown east sides. And it doesn't just go across Vancouver, it also goes all the way into the interior. Kelowna, I think, has one of the largest tent cities anywhere in North America. So my eyes and ears do not lie. I think that many Canadians feel the same way. We're at a real crisis point, and it is a form of gaslighting for the Minister of Justice, of all people, to say that this is not the Wild West when we see rampant crime and homelessness everywhere we turn.
yeah, and I think like the concern amongst other concerns with this is the same justice minister who just beat the ever loving heck, I'll say heck, out of immigration and housing. Like we've seen like historical ineptitude. Like he will go down, he's on the Mount Rushmore with Justin Trudeau for most damaging politicians to this country. Yeah, he was following some orders, but at some point you can say, I don't know, maybe a few million less, or maybe this should keep up with the housing supply. And now we're handing him a sort of crime and chaos file, and he's giving us the kind of answer that they gave us on immigration and housing not years ago, which they now admit and say, oh, we got to solve this crisis, that crisis. Who's been in charge? Who's been in charge this whole time? We frequently hear Ontario's Premier Doug Ford, a three-term conservative majority friend of Mark Carney's, saying, oh, we got to fix this, folks. You're the premier. It it boggles the mind. It drives people crazy that these changes in population growth we're finally witnessing. It's not just like sending temporary scammers home. It's people giving up because they're so frustrated with this. I know so many talented Canadian professionals, far more talented than I. I have one of these sort of communications imaginary laptop jobs. Like people with crazy skill sets are looking around for other visas because they're going, I don't feel safe. I don't feel like they have immigration under control. I can't afford a house. These terrible stories this weekend that just serve to remind those, even on Labor Day, it's supposed to be this nice like moment of self-reflection and like quiet moments on the dock. Well, across from the dock, we now have temporary foreign worker militias firing off illegal rounds. And in McTier and in Muskoka, like there are family homes just along that tree line. There are kids working summer jobs. I used to work summer jobs there. I worked at a marina and I pumped gas. I detailed boats. I did a terrible job at it. But I don't remember there being a bunch of guys who just got here just letting loose with assault rifles. Like, could you've done a good job pointing out this story. I mean, we've all seen the videos from Mario Zelaya as well. Like, what can you tell us, more about this group of guys?
Which group of guys specifically are you referring to? Like the
The bridge in Muskoka. Let's say
oh
the what the heck happened there? Yeah, and we're looking at the video now.
yeah. So I did a very so I covered a very similar. Muskoka is very far away. Canada is a very large country, as you know. So, but we had a similar group of guys in BC that I followed with the help of my editor, Cosmo Georgia. Big shout out to him because he helped with the story immensely.
Big shout out. Cosman's
Cosmo's
great.
amazing, and so what we did is we found a video via X, via third party, of course, that showed a bunch of guys doing a similar thing in the outskirts of the Greater Vancouver area, and we were able to locate, probably I would say within a degree of separation of 2 or 3 people, exactly who it was in a matter of minutes. It really wasn't that
Wow.
difficult. We just zoomed in on the license plate and we looked at the license plate cover and we figured out the dealership. We contacted the Surrey police and the RCMP about this. And I get it. It's kids shooting guns. On the one hand, it's kind of innocent. But on the other hand, it's the brazenness of doing it and showing your license plate and filming it on the internet that I find offensive as just like a reasonable human being, right? Like there's something I find really genuinely upsetting about that, just in
Yeah.
terms of people maybe thinking that they're above the law, or at best being too ignorant to know that there is a law.
Or that the law doesn't matter. Like that's the concern, right? Like it's if we care so little about this stuff that we can, do the ISIS Kalishnikov into the air routine in borderline residential areas and post our cars and our they're practically holding up their driver's licenses. And that months could go by and no one could know or give a darn. And thank goodness for you guys being on the beat there and doing the job that the police are supposed to do, because I see this too. Like I've covered immigration extensively, more than I'd like to. It's just such a big problem. I see the problems it's causing for young people. It's like I want to talk about other stuff.
Well,
But
if I
I'll
can
open up,
interject here very briefly, I think the police
please.
are doing within the resources that they have and the laws that they're
Yeah.
constrained by are doing what they can. So this is a crazy statistic. So Statistics Canada last year reported, in their last year on record, that 40% of people who actually go to trial are convicted, and that includes both conditional and absolute discharges. So when you think like the prisons are, they're not full. At least the federal prisons, you would think that they would be full. The provincial prisons are full of people waiting for bail, and when they finally go to trial, many of them are not convicted. I don't know. I'm very curious as to why that is. I don't think that that's the police's jurisdiction. I think that that's either judges being too lenient, or
It's the
perhaps
courts.
prosecutors
Yeah.
being incompetent, or even more unlikely that our criminal defense lawyers are just exceptional. That could be the case, but my mind wanders.
I think the laughter, the natural inclination there is what figured out. Yeah. Yeah, because it must then be, and there's been great coverage and opinion and thought about this, and Candace does a good job talking about this here as well at the Juno, is that this problem with these kind of liberal appointee judges of the last 10 years, where you now have this kind of what their version of like a post judicial approach to law and order, which increasingly we're seeing. Cosman's reported on this as well. Um, more lenient sentences for those on visas because the judge doesn't want it to get in the way of their immigration status. That's exactly what should get in the way of an immigration status. That's the point. This isn't a given. This is a supposed to be a privilege to come here and to qualify and to contribute. Instead, we're seeing these massive fraud networks. We're seeing it in our trucking industry, which I hit on last week with Gordon McGill, going deep into the rot there, and just like the obvious and clear criminality that, like, you spend 3 minutes on that file and you go, holy moly, like a lot of people chose to let this go through. I think even just I'll open up Instagram some days, like the depth of the rot here, and I will openly see immigration scammers on Instagram Reels and TikTok just saying, use my service, I'll smuggle you into the United States. And you're going, that's just right on Front Street. That's right on Front Street. Like, what is going on here? And so it's really unfortunate to see the level of lack of care, of lack of duty to care. And now, after a weekend like this, after all these stories that you've reported on so excellently, we're kind of seeing things come to a head. Like the House is resuming, and people are getting really upset, and they're going, you've had a few months here. Let's, maybe start thinking about some criminal reform, not just reform to the other files, because surely they can't get away with gaslighting any longer, because it does feel like the Wild West, with the unfortunate caveat that you're not even getting some of the benefits of the Wild West. Like, you can truly opportunity, abundance, settling your claim, go west, young man. Like, I'm in a dog crate condo. If someone tried to attack my little dog crate condo right now, like, I might get charged for standing my ground or having to go through a legal rigmarole. And so, thankfully, there's guys like you who are going to keep exposing this stuff. And
Well,
we really appreciate your time today, Alex.
if I may, I think that
Please.
when it comes to debating these issues, because they are issues that will be debated amongst legislatures or legislators, I should say. And so when you're making laws in a political environment, there has to be some level of compromise and understanding. And so where I think that Sean Fraser, I think what he was trying to say is that the likelihood of someone like you or myself having a random home intruder just burst through your window with a crossbow is extraordinarily unlikely. That is true. It is extremely unlikely. But I think that what Canadians don't understand about the flimsiness of the self-defense laws, and I learned this covering the Coots case with Gordon McGill, your previous guest, Canadians do not even have a right to preemptive self-defense. This is how crazy the self-defense laws are in Canada. If you were to go to your kitchen and pull out a kitchen knife and say, this would make a great weapon against a home intruder, which is what most of us do, like on when we're keyboard warrioring about the subject all the time, you are in possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, and you can go to jail. You are not even allowed to talk about defending yourself in Canada, much less actually defending yourself in the extremely unlikely event that somebody would jump through your window and attack you with a crossbow.
I've got a kitchen knife to put back in the kitchen right now, then.
That's right. If you have a kitchen knife, it's only for cooking.
Folks, put them back now, and then you can take them out later. We won't.
If you have a baseball bat, it's for going to play baseball. No, this is actually how the laws are oriented in Canada.
Yeah.
If you have a gun and you say,
Yeah.
I have it for the purpose of self-defense, you are in contravention of the self-defense laws in Canada.
Yeah, young women can't carry like mace or bear spray on the subway, even though, that can be the Wild West, especially if you go to Toronto.
Correct. So the reason that I bring this up is because I'm seeing a lot of things on the left where they're saying that this situation with the man in Lindsay is analogous to, for instance, a young black boy I understand was shot recently because he was Nicky Nine Door.
Yeah.
Those two things are not analogous. Like they're just not the same. If somebody comes into your window with a crossbow, obviously that's not the same thing as somebody knocking on your door. But in order to understand where the left is coming from, you have to put your feet into their shoes for a moment and recognize that it is very unlikely that any individual is going to be the victim of a random home intruder coming into their home. there is that is the baseline of their logic, and I think that there is some truth to that. I've looked through most of the self-defense cases in the recent months in the Court of Ontario Court of Justice, and in almost all cases the individuals knew, they were familiar with each other. So is it the Wild West? Compared to 10 years ago, absolutely. Compared to 150 years ago, I guess. Fraser has a point. Like, if we're going back to like the Red Dead Redemption days, yes.
One of my favorite games. Alex, thank you for that perspective. It's obviously helpful to flesh that out and not just, not just whip people into a fervor. I think concerns will remain,
Of course.
but to know that maybe give him a slight benefit of the doubt. It's he. I don't know how much rope he deserves given his track record, but it is encouraging to know that it is not malicious. It might just be ineptitude, which would be kind of appreciated. But evidently the like our audience here, beleaguered common sense folk, they're running out of time to accept some of these, potential excuses, to accept this tone policing when, objectively speaking, as you were saying, like it's definitely worse than the last 10 years, like, or it's gotten worse
Way
over the
worse.
last, that period. And so I know you're going to be a busy guy in your crime reporting. We're, greatly, thankful for you hopping on, and we'll keep an eye out for more of your stories. Thank you,
My
Alex.
pleasure. Thank you.